What's going on, y'all? It's J Smo Reviews here, back at it again with another video, man. And here we are, one day before the mega fight, which really could have a double meaning, because obviously Bud versus Canelo is on tomorrow, which I will also be watching. But as you can see by the title of the video, I am obviously talking about Hitman Holla versus Murda Mook. I've talked about this battle now on like 3 or 4 different occasions. Obviously, when it was initially announced, spoke on in my predictions very recently. Us at LTBR had a 20v1, two 20v1 fan spaces, where it was one Mook fan versus 20 Hitman fans, then one Hitman fan versus 20 Murda Mook fans. So there's been no shortage of coverage, excitement for this battle. We know what it means. And now, as you see, I am bringing back my Keys to Victory series for this matchup. There's a couple battles I should have done this for as well on the way. Hopefully, even with Twerkin Lux just being a week from tomorrow, or 8 days from tomorrow. We have so many big matches coming up. I'll have a couple more of these out if you guys are enjoying them like you did before. But for anyone that hasn't seen my Keys to Victory series, very simple. We're going to look at both battlers. We're going to bring up 3, in my opinion, 3 big keys to victory for any scenario where the either's going to win, what they have to take advantage of strengths-wise, strategically what they can do to possibly secure the W. And then I have one, just for this one specific key that applies to both gentlemen that I'll mention after I talk about, both of their planning, both of their slates going into the battle, right? But with all that being said, we will start with Hitman Holla. So the first key for Hitman, and once you guys see this, you might be like, well, why wouldn't this apply for both of them, right? This should be like a basic part of the battle, but I think specifically for Hitman's side of things, this has to be extremely emphasized, and that is detailed angles. Now, I've said over and over again regarding this battle, it is going to be a war of angles. It's going to be a dialogue-driven battle. They're both going to be rapping about the same topics and kind of having a back and forth in perspective, as opposed to this being a bar for bar type of battle, scheme for scheme, you know what I mean? And Hitman specifically, all through the promo, in the face-off, and he really does this when talking to other battlers as well. It's just a message that he puts out there. He's always talking about facts. Come to me with the facts. I talk facts. Let's talk facts. Everything is based on the fact that what he's saying is more factual than the other person. And I do think in some of these convos that we're about to hear about impact on the game, overall draw, maybe things that they've brought to help the game grow, I think Hitman would have some facts on his side in these arguments, right? But it's one thing to say them, and it's another thing to display them. And I think sometimes when Hitman gets caught up, and I think one of his biggest critiques, right, is the money talk, or this kind of just braggadocious, well, I'm just a bigger battler, I'm a bigger name than you type of viewpoint, where people are like, well, there's no real creativity to that. It's general, you could say it to anybody, and it becomes hollow to some. So in this battle, it's not that subject matter should just be pushed to the side, right? If you are the bigger battler, if you've made a league and the other hasn't, if you feel like you've taken the game to certain heights that maybe he was foundational for, but you're the one that took it and really ran with it after, all of that is good, but it has to be painted perfectly for the audience. So it's not just, oh, I'm talking facts. It's, oh, I see the connections that he made there. And I think a perfect example, if you're wondering, is in his Ill Will battle, right? Hitman Holla, one battle of the year in 2023, when he took the angle of me backing out of the Tay-Rock battle, or not accepting that offer, led to you getting that SM opportunity. And then just the way that he drew that out, it was a little long-winded, right? But it really broke down, wow, like one of Ill Will's biggest opportunities coming up really came from Hitman not taking that opportunity. And he used a specific instance to show how his reach and his impact actually is not just above another battler, but helped that other battler that he's currently rapping against. Now, versus a Murda Mook, who almost pretty much matches you in stature, in some people's opinions, is above you, that's going to be a little bit harder to do. But if you have all of these facts, you need to dress it up in a way that the audience can clearly follow what you're saying and be like, oh, well, I agree with that. Not just, well, I'm bigger than you. There has to be a little bit more, and that's why I think detailed angles, Hitman's an elite angler. I think he has the full capabilities of this, but he has to be really on top of it for this specific matchup. The second key, which is I think one of the more obvious ones here, especially for Hitman Holla, is the advantage in explosiveness and aggression. in battles like this, there's a few different ways to view it, right? Kind of different things that you have to try maybe for this specific matchup, especially of this level. You're going to have to use everything that's in your arsenal, and then some things that you don't tap into often, but something to show that variety. Well, this is just using your biggest strength. I think before anything, even if you're going to include a lot of different things in the game plan, the one thing you have to do, whether you're a pen, a performer, an angler, etc., you have to take what you're best at and do that at your absolute best, right? Because if that's what you're known for going into the battle, if that's the one attribute people will say, well, you definitely have over the other person, you can't risk them matching you in that category, right? You have to show that separation and be like, I am the best performer out of the two of us by far, and I'm going to make you pay in this battle for that. And Hitman, I think, is more of a haymaker-based rapper, moment-based rapper than Murda Mook. When we talk about some of those top performance haymakers on the big stage, like Hitman's made a career of like peak moments of breaking the building. Obviously, Mook has done that as well, but I think Hitman, while Mook might be more on that angling side, on that pen breakdown of battler side, Hitman is about those bombs that last through history. You're going to need some of those in this battle, and if it is something that people, even people that don't like Hitman very much, right, and are going 100% think Mook's going to kill him, they'll tell you still that Hitman is probably the better performer than Murda Mook. So you have to be at 100 at that, because that is the thing that you're expected to be 100 at. So that's two of the keys to victory. We're going to have some detailed angles. You have to break the man down where each word means something. You have to be extremely explosive and take advantage of something that you already have the advantage in. And then the last key to victory is matching the rapping ability. I believe that on top of this being a war of angles, two things that the other thing that both of these gentlemen do at a high level is simply rapping. And I think while we talk about Hitman speaking so heavy on facts, Murda Mook has spoken so heavy on focus on the raps. Can you rap with me, right? And I think that there's two folds to that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more on Mook's side as well. But just in terms of the flow pockets, the cadences, how long you're holding patterns, and really the way it makes the bar sound. It's one thing to say something very fire. It's another thing to rap it perfectly so you're really leading the crowd into it. Just listening to you rap is the entertainment in itself. And I think both of them are elite at that. I think most people would edge that category to Mook, but that's why Hitman has to match that ability. I think in his last few battles, you look at, even though he lost to Easy, the first round versus Easy the Block Captain, the Ill Will battle, even parts of the Geechee and Hustle battle, a lot of times Hitman is the better rapper of the two battlers in there, where he's flowing through it a little bit better, a little bit more unique of a sound. So in a battle where Mook is expected to already be elite at that, I think Hitman has the ability to match, or at least come very close to matching Mook on just a rapping level. So in this specific battle where Mook has painted a picture where not only do I rap better than you, I don't even think you rap all that well. If Hitman comes out with all those signature flows, that's really been the backbone of so many of his good performances lately. This is a battle where you have to show that. So it's like, well, Mook said the Hitman can't rap with him at all, and he's up here rapping his ass off. So, as one more time going over those three keys of victory for Hitman Holla, we talked about having the angles be extremely detailed, painting that picture perfect for the crowd, being explosive while doing it, probably winning that haymaker battle, but being the battler that brings more energy to the table. And then, of course, while doing all that, rapping at his highest level, so it does not look like you were just the performance guy versus the rap guy. You are both rapping incredible, plus I bring that performance to the table. So after looking at Hitman's perspective, we can switch gears to my three keys of victory for Murda Mook. And the first one is, in principle, very similar to the second one I had for Hitman, where my big message is take advantage of your advantages. So when Hitman has that advantage in explosiveness and aggression, performance, when people are expecting that, you have to be the best of that within the battle. And first key of victory for Murda Mook is show the separation in pen and creativity. Mook himself has spoken on this a ton, especially in the face-off, and he said that he can't rap with them, but he also said you got to be creative with the way you say it. Can you be more creative or more fire than me? Now, I said with the rapping ability, it's actually a lot closer than I think most give credit for, where I think they can match each other in that. But this isn't just the strict rapping ability I'm talking about. It's the punches, the schemes, the setups, the wordplay, that type of creativity and complexity with the pen. And that's a clear advantage for Murda Mook. I mean, I think if you look at something as recent as his Arsenal performance, right? Now, I've said I believe I know Hitman is a far tougher opponent than Arsenal, but a critique him and Arsenal have shared is kind of like that creativity or complexity. Like, are they saying anything that fire, double entendre wise? You know what I'm saying? Name flip wise, like that layer of battle rap. Because even though I do believe, like I said, this is going to be a war of angles, you need bars in a battle at the end of the day. And I think Mook can outbar him. He is the more complex battler. I mean, look at the masterclass he put up versus Arsenal. And he showed that separation. Even when Arsenal had a really good first round, Mook was writing better than him off rip. And it only showed more and more as the battle went on. So same way Hitman has his advantage, Mook has a huge advantage here. And if he's just far more creative, far more witty, if there's just more bars than there is to Hitman, who may be talking facts over there, but if I'm giving my own perspective that some may perceive as facts for me, right? And then I'm also barring you up in a far more fire fashion, it's going to earn people my side. More people are going to have me winning the battle. So you got to show that separation in pen that you've been talking about and most believe that you have. Second one is performance / crowd control. Now, this might seem funny, right? We just talked about taking advantage of your advantages. And this particular category would be Hitman's advantage, right? I don't know, and I really don't think that performance-wise Mook can match Hitman, right? But I look at two examples of battles he's had in the last 4 or 5 years or so. With Mook not battling as often, we have to reach back 2 or 3 years for some battles because that is within his last 5 or 6, right? That's technically in his recent body of work. I look at the Reed Dollaz battle. I look at the New Jersey Twerk battle. They're perceived far different for Mook, right? Him and Reed is an awful battle on SM11. It's not a good look for him whatsoever, but it is the last battle that he had in Houston. And I think one of the biggest issues there, some Mook fans still debate that he had good material in that battle. I disagree. I definitely think it was lackluster. But I think it wasn't like just the worst shit ever spit, right? But he lost the crowd at points in there. They're just not vibing with the battle. His pace is off. Now I think we're going to talk about the Twerk battle. Mook has clearly learned since then, but that was his last time in Houston. And then when he battles Twerk, that is in his backyard in New York. So seeing him, he did go to Detroit and obviously super duper handled business at a masterclass versus Arsenal. But his last time in Houston was a little bit questionable, right? So returning to Houston, you got to have that crowd control where even if the guy that you're battling is better in that category, you can't be losing the crowd the way you did more than anything. You have to have a stable amount of whether it's performance or crowd control, because you can have crowd control without being overly performative. So I'm not saying he has to go fully out of his usual game plan and overperform. I'm not saying anything like that, but that, like in the Geechee Gotti battle, that could be a way of getting the crowd on your side. You just can't lose the crowd. And now looking at the New Jersey Twerk battle, Mook is phenomenal versus Twerk. That's actually one of my personal favorite Mook performances of all time, even with how recent it was. But the crowd was chanting 2-0 in his backyard for Twerk, and I do have him clearly losing the first 2 rounds of that battle to New Jersey Twerk, even though I still think Mook was great. And why? Because Twerk is just such an explosive rapper, and he used that performance. Obviously, he overmatched him in that wordplay, creativity, haymaker category, much more than Mook, much more than I think Hitman could do. But I think Twerk's energy really is a big thing that took that New York crowd from Mook in parts of that battle. So when you're getting into this battle, like I said, I don't think that he will be able to straight up match Hitman. I don't think that should be in his game plan to match Hitman in performance, right? That's not necessarily the strength of your game. That's not what makes Murda Mook. But you can't afford a scenario, and I think Hitman, energy-wise, is similar to Twerk, where Hitman is taking this crowd from you and you're kind of losing them like you did versus Reed Dollaz, because that's going to lead to Hitman's energy and momentum going this way. That's going to lead to your energy and momentum going this way. So however you want to perceive that, I don't think because of these prior instances I'm seeing with Mook, you can say that maybe it's a little out of context. That's not going to be like this matchup. He's learned since then. Totally cool with that, but we have to see him execute that on the stage, right? So that's two of them right there. Show that difference in pen and creativity. Make sure you have the crowd with you one way or another throughout the battle. Can't let Hitman snatch that momentum. And then my last key for victory for Murda Mook, one that both of these men will probably do this, but I think Mook can do it better, is counter-writing. War of angles. And they kind of know what they're going to say to each other. I'm sure they're both going to bring some creative approaches that you weren't 100% expecting going into the battle, but we know what the topic matter is going to be in terms of impact to battle rap. Like, their talking points through the grudge, they've been going back and forth for so long, undoubtedly will be subject matter within the battle. So they're both going to know. They both know what they're going to talk about and what the other is going to talk about. So I'm sure both are going to counter-write a bit, but I do believe Mook is a little bit of a better angler than Hitman Holla. I think Hitman's elite. He doesn't always get his full credit, but I think Mook is like the godfather of angling. He's debatably, if not flat out, the best angler in battle rap history. So I know that he's going to have all types of tailored ways of trying to break down Hitman, but I also think something that could extremely favor him is kind of diffusing Hitman's angles, having that dialogue within where discrediting what he's saying or saying why it shouldn't fully apply or be the point that it should. In the face-off, it's a mini example of them doing that, and I think a lot of people gravitated towards Mook's more laid-back approach. And what is it that he said in the face-off? My silence is louder than anything you could ever say. Not sure 100% how I actually feel about that, being that Hitman is the more impactful battler nowadays. However, it hit in that room, right? And it's a great example of countering, diffusing a little bit of what Hitman's going to do. So that's a very small example of it, but if he can pull off moments like that in the face-off within the battle, that's a perfect example of counter-writing, taking the wind out of Hitman's sails in terms of his approach to the battle. And to me, even though both will probably counter-write, like I said, Mook can do it to a bit of a higher level. So we talked about Hitman's points, and as for Mook, he's going to show that separation in pen and creativity. He's got to have some crowd control. People are going to listen to all that, but you got to have a little bit of that energy to make your voice heard in a room where you're across from the best performer of all time. And then, of course, not just making tailored points against him, but counter-writing and kind of breaking down why what Hitman's saying shouldn't fully hit. So that is my keys of victory for both Hitman and Murda Mook in this battle. I'll throw these up in the corner somewhere that you can see them. Maybe pause and read them for yourself if you want to. But like I said, for this particular battle, I also have one point that applies to both gentlemen. It is a shared key in my opinion, and that is neither of them can have standout bad bars in this battle. You just can't have them. And especially at this level, right? It doesn't matter if you have necessarily a whole round or most of a round that's fire, right? If this battle contains Hitman saying something like, I'll put on some Nike slides and slide on him, like he did versus Easy the Block Captain, or Mook when he told Reed Dallas, I'll Eagle Dollar for Iguodala, or the ABC scheme versus Big K, right? They already have, while they have humongous fan bases that love them, they also, being two of the bigger battle rappers ever, have humongous hate bases that go against them. And these bars, the bad bars from Hitman and Mook, are maybe quoted more than anyone's bad bars in battle rap. You've heard some of their worst hits in some people's opinions are constantly getting made fun of for these bad bars. So in this battle, where it means more than ever and the pressure is as high as ever, if you have a quotable that is so bad it stands out in people's minds, people are going to run with that all day. You cannot have the air balls that sometimes both of these guys are prone to, where it's like, you're just better off not even having a different bar. You're better off just not saying that bar at all. There could be dead space, but you cannot have a historically bad quotable that for years and years people are going to bring up, like, how did Hitman win if he said this bar? Or, oh, what a writer Mook is when he said this in the second round. So I think that applies for both, where one bad bar is obviously not just going to lose you a battle, but people are going to be very tribalistic about who they're rooting for here. And if you have that, they're going to take that. They're just going to run with it. They're both prone to having those moments, so hopefully there's none of that in this battle. But that is my full keys to victory video here for Hitman Holla versus Murda Mook. Obviously, I think it is a coin toss of a battle to call. Usually there is clear winners in grudge matches, so if it does follow that pattern, I won't necessarily be surprised, but I am picking Hitman 2-1 edge going into the battle. But I think in my mind, you could see, I see the pathway for both of them to win this battle. I could see a world where Hitman just outfacts Murda Mook, right? Has that explosiveness, just has a couple more haymakers compared to Mook, and is able to take that Houston crowd with him, and kind of makes Mook's great writing look a little bit lesser than compared to directly tailored angling and explosiveness. However, Mook has that same ability to angle down Hitman while being a bit more creative, while still having crowd control and dancing on him, being smooth in his own way. So it's very capable for both men to win the battle, and I just wanted to point out some of the big key points that could win both of them this battle going on tomorrow, man. But with all that being said, that will be my last video before we get to Bulletproof tomorrow. Of course, I will be doing my updates. My Twitter's always in the description. I'm giving my thoughts to the event pretty much play by play as it goes down. Expect my recap either the night of tomorrow or at the very worst Sunday morning. And then, of course, I'll also be on the Let's Talk Battle Rap podcast, man. Go subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter, where me and the boys will be breaking down, our full calls for Bulletproof, all the craziness that will be going down. And of course, I want to hear your guys' opinions in the comment section down below. How do you feel about my reasonings to either of them winning, my keys to victory? Do you personally have a key to victory that could be the standout reason either or wins the battle? And of course, one final time, who do you have winning between Hitman Holla and Murda Mook tomorrow? And do you think it will be an all-time battle or a lopsided battle? But it's been J Smo Reviews again here, y'all. Be looking out for all of the Bulletproof recap content after the fact tomorrow. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.